The committee room of the Senate Judiciary Committee had seen its fair share of tension over the years, but on this chilly Thursday afternoon, there was a strange electricity in the air, something that made staffers whisper in the corners and journalists lean closer over their notepads. The topic was Adam Schiff's newly proposed election transparency bill, a sprawling, 118-page document dropped on the committee's desk only a few hours before the hearing. What made the moment even more volatile was that Senator John Kennedy, known for his razor wit, his syrupy Louisiana charm, and his uncanny ability to slice through political jargon like a hot knife through butter, was scheduled to speak. Schiff sat stiffly, hands folded, jaw set with the same expression he used during his most contentious hearings, something between determination and impatience. He had come prepared for pushback, but he had not come prepared for what was about to unfold. Kennedy shuffled into the room a few minutes late, apologizing with a gentle bow of the head and a voice smooth enough to butter a biscuit. "Pardon my tardiness," he drawled. "I was trying to finish reading the bill, but my eyes staged a protest halfway through." The gallery chuckled lightly. Schiff did not. Kennedy slipped into his chair, removed his reading glasses from his breast pocket, and set a bright yellow copy of Schiff's bill on the desk. He tapped it once with the back of his pen. "Mr. Chairman," he said, "with your permission, I'd like to read a portion of this legislation aloud." A few senators exchanged glances. Schiff's eyebrows rose, just barely. He didn't like surprises, and Kennedy was a walking, talking surprise generator. "You may proceed, Senator Kennedy," the chairman answered. Kennedy cleared his throat, flipped to the first page, and began. "Article 1, subsection A," he read slowly. "The Department of Electoral Integrity, an agency newly created under this Act, shall assume jurisdiction over all state and federal election oversight functions, including but not limited to procedural audits, candidate compliance, ballot certification, informational reporting, and public communication protocols as outlined in sections 4.2 through 4.9. He paused and looked up. "Now, I'm from Louisiana, not from Mars. But even where I'm from, talking over every election function from every state sounds about as wise as teaching a possum to drive." A ripple of laughter moved through the room, this time louder. Schiff tensed. Kennedy continued reading. "The department shall develop a public communication template for candidate disclosures pertaining to matters of national interest, international influence, classified engagement awareness, and any other subject deemed relevant by the appointed review board." He squinted. "Lord help me," he murmured, more to himself than anyone else. "Mr. Schiff, what in the world is classified engagement awareness? It sounds like something out of one of those spy movies my wife watches when she's mad at me." A senator 2 seats down snorted into his coffee. Staffers bit their lips to keep straight faces. Reporters scribbled frantically. Schiff leaned toward his microphone. "If the senator would allow—" But Kennedy held up a hand. "Just a moment, Congressman. I promise you'll get your chance to explain this creation. But I'd like to continue so we all understand what exactly we're dealing with." Schiff leaned back. His face twitched. Kennedy turned to page 2. Section 2.3. Candidates for federal office shall submit pre-election psychological assessment reports conducted by an accredited federal psychiatrist. Kennedy froze mid-sentence. Then he read it again, slower, as though unsure his eyes were telling the truth. Candidates shall submit psychological assessment reports conducted by an accredited federal psychiatrist. He looked up. Silence. Real silence. Even the air conditioning seemed to stop humming. "Well, butter my biscuits and call me confused," Kennedy finally said, lowering the page. Are we diagnosing candidates now? You trying to turn campaign season into a trip to the doctor's office? We already got folks complaining about long lines at the DMV. Now we're gonna have lines at the federal therapist's office? A burst of laughter erupted so loudly the chairman had to smack his gavel. Schiff's face flushed pink. It's a routine evaluation. It's routine like surgery is routine, Kennedy shot back. Technically correct, practically terrifying. The chairman tried to restore order. Kennedy adjusted his glasses again, flipping ahead. Section 3.1. Public responses to candidate disclosures shall be moderated by the department to prevent misinformation, confusion, destabilization, or undue panic. Kennedy blinked. So you want the federal government moderating the public's reactions? Mr. Schiff, we're senators, not babysitters. The American people don't need a hall monitor following M around telling M when they're allowed to panic. The laughter now had an almost disbelieving edge. Nobody had expected this bill to be perfect, but this was something else entirely. Journalists typed as fast as their fingers could fly. Kennedy continued, more animated now. Section 4.5. All political advertisements shall receive a pre-approval classification rating from the department, verifying appropriateness, tone, and informational accuracy. He read it twice. Then he burst into a grin so slow and so wide it was almost theatrical. You're creating a movie rating system for campaign ads? What are we gonna have now? Rated G for generally patriotic? Rated PG for pretty generic? Rated R for ruthless attack ad, viewer discretion advised? The room shook with laughter. Even a few senators on the opposite side couldn't help cracking smiles. Schiff pinched the bridge of his nose. Kennedy flipped another page. Section 5.7. The department shall have authority to temporarily suspend candidate campaigns should compliance reviews indicate procedural concerns, awareness failures, or integrity deficiencies. He looked up, eyes wide. Suspend their campaign? Based on your department's awareness failures. That sounds like something straight out of the land of make-believe. Schiff leaned forward. Senator Kennedy, you are deliberately oversimplifying. No, sir, Kennedy interrupted. I'm reading your bill, word for word. Ain't nothing simple about this. This thing's got more red flags than a bullfighting convention. More laughter. Kennedy set the bill down. He folded his glasses, leaned back, and finally gave Schiff his full attention. Mr. Schiff, you served a long time in Congress. We ain't always agreed. Well, truthfully, we rarely agree. But I've always assumed you could at least hear how something sounds before you propose it. You're a skin for a federal agency to control campaigns, ads, candidate evaluations, public reactions, and elections themselves. I'm no genius, but I can smell centralization from a mile away. Schiff spoke carefully. Senator, election security is not a joking matter. I'm not joking, Kennedy said, voice softening but sharpening at the same time. I'm Logan to keep from crying. The room stilled again. Kennedy tapped the bill with one careful finger. You wrote a law that treats American voters like children and candidates like lab rats. You want the federal government to examine their heads, monitor their speeches, approve their ads, evaluate their emotions, and silence their responses. You even want to suspend their campaigns when your board of bureaucrats decides they ain't aware enough. Schiff opened his mouth. Kennedy raised his voice slightly. Sir, with respect, and I am being respectful, this is not a bill. This is a wish list for folks who think freedom is a design flaw. A collective murmur rose from both sides of the committee. Schiff tried again. Senator Kennedy, you are weaponizing exaggeration. This bill is meant to streamline electoral processes. Kennedy held up the bill again, like a preacher holding up scripture. "I don't need to exaggerate, Congressman. All I gotta do is read what you wrote." He flipped it shut with a soft thud. And I did. The silence that followed was different from before. It was heavier, thicker, as though every person in the room understood the gravity of what they had just witnessed. It wasn't anger, and it wasn't triumph. It was the slow, dawning realization that something in the tone of the hearing had shifted. Kennedy leaned forward, elbows on the table. "Now, if you want to revise this, tighten it up, cut it down from a novel to something shorter than a grocery list, I'm happy to help. But as it stands, I wouldn't vote for this bill if you paid me in gold, crawfish, and Mardi Gras beads." Even Schiff couldn't stop a smile from flickering, though it vanished just as quickly. The chairman cleared his throat. "Congressman Schiff, would you like to respond?" Schiff inhaled deeply. "Only to say that I believe Senator Kennedy's interpretation is unfairly dramatic. The bill is ambitious, yes, but ambition is necessary when dealing with elections in a complex modern landscape. I stand by its intent." Kennedy nodded politely. "And I stand by my reading. Which, by the way, I urge everyone else here to do. This ain't bedtime literature. You've got to be awake, wide awake, for something like this." A few senators laughed knowingly. The chairman finally adjourned for a recess. But the moment Kennedy stood, the room erupted. Reporters surged forward. Cameras clicked like hailstones hitting pavement. Staffers whispered in excited clusters. Senators exchanged looks they usually reserved for verdict announcements or leaked scandals. Schiff packed his papers methodically, jaw clenched but eyes composed. Kennedy, meanwhile, took his time, slow and steady, like a man who had just delivered a sermon and was letting the